But I hadn't seen this movie in a while. Like, we should talk about Oliver Stone for a little bit.
Why would you watch it?
Well, because he's a really interesting guy, right? Like, so, I mean, I think I still like a lot of things about Platoon. Obviously,
Platoon's still great.
Yeah,
I love JFK.
So I was
a train wreck of a movie.
At what point did At what point did he kind of start doing the thing that he was clearly running with here? I mean, somewhere between like JFK, Natural Born Killers, which, as a side note, I actually think that what he did with Natural Born Killers and what Tony Scott did with True Romance, like, he made those two scripts better than if Tarantino had directed themselves.
Absolutely.
I think Natural Born Killers is still maybe my favorite of all of his movies.
It showed some promise of him going down almost like an indie film path, which he should have actually pursued.
So this movie, though, which came after that, and he's still obviously sort of like, he's a weird one to watch, because he gets all this money, he gets all these A-level talent, and then it's like he's got like this multiple personality, because over here you kind of got the lurid Oliver Stone, then over here you've got the trying to say something Oliver Stone, then you got the spastic Oliver Stone, and all these things kind of come together in this big soup of a movie.
Yes,
which
and it's all squandered. Wasted Potential is the name.
I don't know that it's a good movie. It is, however, an extremely entertaining movie.
No, it wasn't dull.
And I don't. It kind of, like, I like to say that I don't give a crap about sports, but I did watch a lot of football for a number of years, and I think this movie made the sport of football very visually exciting. I think
every single game in this movie looks different from every other game in this movie. Like, they did a fantastic job in this. That is something that is never done in sports movies, of making every game distinct from every other one. Like,
except for Goon, but we won't stop.
I think what he had to say about the business of sports, I found really, really interesting. I thought everything sort of tied to, Cameron Diaz trying to make it as a young owner and having to deal with, assholes like the Charlton Heston cameo we kind of get at the end. Like, that was all really, really great. But it's like he can't help himself on all the other shit that kind of like sort of creep in every once in a while, this sort of random montagey, like, layering of images for no particular reason. There was a lot of stuff in here that's just like, why are you distracting?
Because they invented the Avid, and he couldn't get enough of the Avid.
You cannot help yourself.
Yeah.
But
those multiple screens for completely unmotivated.
No, it was like you were waiting for a star wipe to happen. You know what I mean? It's like the last thing.
But
video toaster.
Buried in this, I think, is a very good, script with some really good performances and a lot to say about America, Western culture, the personality around football.
Okay, hold that thought for a sec, Chris. Yeah. The question, I think, is one of sincerity. Oliver Stone made this film. He wrote it. He directed it. I can't tell if, or maybe let's go around the room and ask, if this is a sincere film. Is it really about the heroism in football and how it tests one's mettle and makes one a better person and tests one's personality, and it's a full of greatness? Or is it an indictment of all this? Does it show how shallow and how hollow it is?
Both. Jim Brown literally gives that speech in the movie.
Can you do both?
Yes, Jim Brown gives that speech in the movie when he's sitting there and they're talking and he's telling him that he's going to leave and he's not going to do it anymore. And he's going to go and he's going to coach
high school football.
He literally tells him, this is all fucked up. I can't deal with this anymore. Right. I can't deal with what this is. I wanted to get into being a coach in football because I wanted to be like the great coaches that I had when I played. And I can't do that in this world. This world is far too fucked up. I'm going back to high school, which is pure. So the idea is there is a purity to the sport that he believes in, but that purity is completely sullied from everything else that's going on. Like, the amazing thing about this is when this movie came out, nobody knew about concussions in football.
Oh, it came up a couple times too in this film.
Yeah. Like, nobody knew about long-term football injuries. Like, this was stuff that you only knew about if you knew a former football player or something like that. Like, the amazing thing is
that's why the NFL did not participate. That
Did
was the
not-
one thing I found really distracting was
Probably.
I wish they'd had real teams and real stadiums and real team names, because there was something took me out of it.
They tried to.
What was they couldn't say Super Bowl? It was like the Pims Cup or something.
Pantheon Cup.
Yeah,
Pantheon Cup.
The-
But-
And the team names are really funny.
Tad, you
Didn't
just
even
reminded me,
notice.
one of the biggest surprises for me of this movie, Lawrence LT fucking Taylor.
Lawrence Taylor's
good
great
he
in
is.
this.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like
liked
he was
McGinley.
phenomenally good in this movie.
He's so sympathetic as the guy who knows this is it.
Mhm.
The don't drop me, I'm worth $1 million.
Yeah, that's a good bit.
If I get one more tackle, I get that bonus.
Although,
Yeah.
God, that's itself. It was awful to watch in some ways. You know, you're kind of rooting for the guy, but is that what this is reduced to?
When
Yes.
they
Being
cut
able
to
to
him in the
survive
final
a
game,
football game, so you can get your big bonus.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
When
what
they-
it's reduced to.
when they cut to him in the final game, it's like, here's close up. It's like, oh yeah, I'm sure they're cutting to him because he's about to die. I assumed he's going to die because he's been warned. You got to sign a waiver.
Oh,
If
he's
you play,
just gonna
you
be
could
a
die.
vegetable
Right.
for the rest of his life.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, I
But
can't.
he'll be a millionaire vegetable, Jim.
He'll
Also, I
be
can't think of any move in football that would would result in somebody losing their entire eye, including
Finger-
the
Yeah,
optic
come
finger.
on, man.
Finger
I-
gets caught inside the helmet.
Yep.
So a lot of the medical stuff in this is based on a real book about a guy who is the team doctor for the Raiders.
Okay,
And in the 80s.
Mhm.
And that guy's seen some shit.
I'm sure he has.
So that's
That
based
was
on
also-
something that has
The
actually
eye,
happened.
not the eye coming out, but the finger going into the eye
Uh,
inside the. So there's not much difference between
Cool.
those two.
They
No,
do
that was
that
that was how they
intentional.
did football in the '60s too. The hand inside the mask.
Yeah.
that was real common.
Well,
That
they
was-
do it in this when they stomp the guy who hurt the quarterback.
Uh-huh.
You can see his mouth's all bloodied because they were getting in there with their fingers and smashing him in the face.
Yeah,
That's a real thing that football players do. Is
Mhm.
you'll see them, their lips are all bloody. That's why they have the big lip protectors now on the
The
mouth.
helmets have gotten progressively like I remember it was like 1 bar, maybe 2 bars. Now it's a cage, the plexi.
yeah. With
Well, there's the Wes
venting.
Welker helmet that's twice as big and has the compression on the top.
Yeah,
Right.
the compression flap on top of that.
Yeah.
So the message is no one should ever play football.
No,
No.
God,
No.
no. It should
No,
be
the-
outlawed.
this is
Gladiators.
this movie demonstrates without a shadow of a doubt that this is one of the most violent things that people do on a regular basis. Like,
That's true.
But Scott, to your question, I think that's actually what I thought made this movie very watchable. Was there's clearly this push-pull happening where
Yeah,
it's got all these really awful things to say about this sport specifically and America's worship of this sport and all the
oh yeah.
thing, but at the same time, it is unmistakably exciting to watch. Otherwise, people wouldn't watch it.
Right. Well, that Pacino speech at the end kind of diffuses the kind of like the argument against it. You know what I mean? He talks about
Right.
again about
the 1
pure-
inch.
the exactly the essence of the thing, the
The angry.
game of inches, you know, and all that stuff like that. Well, interesting in terms of like the criticism of the whole world was James Woods versus Matthew Modine as
Right.
the two doctors. One
Mhm.
guy was completely sold out and worthless and just dispensing drugs to people, and while Modine was coming up and kind of cared, you know.
Well, was he sell? But
Oh, he sells out at the end, but
no, but Woods, I think he knew what world. I don't know that it was so much he had sold out. It's just that he
he knew what the world
knew
was
where he was and what
Uh-huh.
he was getting paid to do, and everybody was in on it.
Well,
Right.
the speech that he gives almost gives his character a level of redemption when he's like, who am I to tell these guys that they can't do this? They're going to do it whether I tell them not to or not. Like, I might as well be the best doctor I can to them the rest of the time.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, his
a lot of
his storming off scene is good in that respect, that he says, you know, you're not any better than me.
Mhm.
and then he realizes what he's lost and he's like, well, I guess I'll see you around the nursing home then.
Mhm.
You
Right.
know, like he knows he's done.
Right.
So
Well, it turns the idea about like medical compassion on its head. because
Right.
being a doctor for a football team is it's nothing about compassion. It's nothing.
No.
It's all about just survivability. It's all
Right.
it's like it's battlefield medicine, you know, you can
Yeah.
sew the arm back on and get back out in the
Yeah,
field.
but is it any different than, you know, the doctor that does, you know, is responsible for take care of the rock band on the road, like, and just whatever I got
They
to
have
give
those?
lead guitarist to get through the next show?
Uh-huh.
Right.
No,
Yeah, there's
No,
that
Jason.
album. The
I assume
Wall.
there was no medical professionals.
Yeah, that's right.
These rock band
but no,
guys.
like again, this is about the corruption of society by, you know, economic interests.
Yeah, true.
You
So
know, if
for me-
you know anything about Oliver Stone's politics, this movie is perfectly in line with how he thinks about the world.
Yeah.
Like,
And again, it expanded out towards looking at Florida, which is a great place to set this thing because
Yeah.
that is just the trash center of the universe, man.
Right.
And it shows over and over again all these trashy people and trashy houses and superficial bullshit going on and parties, and it's just a huge bonfire of money that means nothing. You know what I mean? It's
And a
just-
cult-
it was-
and a
promising
cult
me
of
for
death.
a Florida double feature in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. Either way, it was appalling to watch because you realize that weird Trumpian Florida thing was been around for a very long time.
Sure. Yeah. It's an
why do you
ugly,
think
it's
he
an
built
ugly movie. It's
Mar-a-Lago
not,
there?
it's not an easy movie to watch because it's so unpleasant. It was kind of like Chris really distilled it well. He says it's like lurid, and then the sort of banana pants editing choices that he made. And then over here is this story, I think, about football.
Right.
Like this movie's for, you know, a sports movie has got to have some scenes of the sport, but
Yeah.
this is really a movie about football. And so for me, it's like, it wasn't an enjoyable experience to watch. I don't care about sports, but I like a good sports movie that makes me care for the running time about a sport. I can think of a lot of them.
Like
This was not one of those.
Hmm.
Because it was so unpleasant to see the machinations of the business side of it. By the way, I think Jamie Foxx is really good in it.
He was very good in it.
He's
Although-
really good.
This is what launched his career.
Yeah.
He's
Like-
not afraid to be unsympathetic too, or at least the
Right.
story is not afraid to cast him in that light. Because the scene where he breaks up with his girlfriend, he is nasty.
Yeah, it
He
is.
is so terrible to her. But then he's really charming to her when he gets her back.
When
Like,
he realizes he's fucked up.
that's
he
range,
becomes a
man.
mu-
He's good.
Yeah.
I thought he was good. Pacino was Pacino.
Huh?
And also this movie takes place in a universe where the movie Ben-Hur starring Charlton Heston exists, and the football commissioner looks just like Charlton Heston.
Hey, maybe they're related. Who knows?
Stone specifically mentions this on the commentary track, that the point of this is that the people who are the rebels eventually sell out.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, and that's why he cast him as that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
John, the
Yeah,
thing
I
I
did-
just throw out there is I don't think
he
this movie
cast
is about
himself
the
as one
game.
of the idiot
this isn't the game.
reporters
Yeah.
No,
because he
this
couldn't get
movie,
his son to be in the movie.
this movie is about how the relationship that you can have with sports as a fan, because Stone's a big fan of the 49ers. That's why San Francisco wins over Miami at the end of the movie.
Mhm.
There's a disconnect that you have mentally as a sports fan, especially a football fan, when you're watching something like this, because there's the part of you that's excited about what's going on in the field, and then there's the other part of you that intellectually knows what's going on the field. So yeah, he's the idiot commentator in it because that's the character in his mind of the fan, like him as a fan.
Including his idiot caricature next to Al Pacino's on the wall.
Very unflattering
I know.
caricature of Oliver Stone.
Although one thing is, this is such an Oliver Stone film that the trope about someone being so nervous that they throw up, which I saw in several sports films, including Invincible, which I think is a great film. It shows up 4 times in this. He barfs.
It's a pattern. It's a running gag. Is that whenever he throws up, they start scoring.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, they mention it. Even I
The
picked
second
up on it.
time, it's like, why haven't you thrown up yet? You know,
Yeah.
that could be your thing.
And the last time
It
he
was his
throws
thing.
up,
It is.
the sports announcers are talking about it. He finally threw up. Yeah.
It's gonna be fun to put in the clips in the episode.
Well, and the other thing about this movie, and I do think this also ties a little bit into the editing that you guys have talked about, is that this is the change in how sports are covered. We're not quite at high def yet in 99, 2000, but we're getting there. Like we're getting to.
It's not the norm yet.
But we're getting to digital cameras.
I noticed there were 4 or 5 editors on this movie, and I think the sports scenes were really well edited.
This scene, the New York scene, where they just let him get fucked up on the field, the way that's shot, where there's nothing behind anything, it's just rain and darkness, like. You don't see that in sports movies. You always have to see the crowd. You always have to know that there's a big crowd there who's watching the game. And like, no, this exists entirely in this plane on the field. And that's all the only place that anything matters.
It actually reminded me of Platoon.
Yeah.
Having some of the people from Platoon probably helps.
Wasn't that very unrealistic? Because they would have called the game if there was that much water and mud on the field.
Not football.
Not in football. They play
not soccer either.
For weather, they
call baseball games for weather. I don't know that they call football.
The Seahawks players are all pussies.
The Seahawks famously played a game outside in Minnesota in the playoffs in January, and they had to at the end of every down, they had guys standing at every 10-yard marker with shovels, and they ran across the field to clear the snow off the field. The only thing you don't play in is lightning. That's the only thing that they will stop a football.
Because they're on open field, they'll get hit. Yeah,
right.
But he had to
go. A lot of lightning in this movie, by the way. Completely. It's unmotivated.
Lightning from a car commercial, though.
That's what I said at one point. I said, why doesn't he just make car commercials? Because that seems like what he wants to do here.
God.
Because
it was the 90s.
Ridley Scott has a...
Right.
Did you guys all sleep through the 90s? Did you forget that this is what all media was like for about 5 years?
It's so...
Yes, it is the most over-the-top version of it.
I mean,
Oliver Stone.
I mean, like, it was fun to revisit.
And to me, that's the dichotomy that's weird for me. That's what's weird for me, is that this seems to be a condemnation of everything, and yet he glorifies the game. He wants people to watch it like a regular sports movie, where it's like, yay, I want my team to win. I want these characters
to spectacle. It's like. Yeah. I used to have arguments with friends about whether Apocalypse Now was an anti-war or pro-war movie.
Yes. A lot of people saw it as a pro-war film.
Yes.
Yeah, because people who are pro-war really see it as a pro-war film, and people who are not see it as an anti-war.
So all right there on the screen.
It's the same thing with Black Hawk Down. People think that Black Hawk Down's a pro-war movie, and it's like, really, if you were pro-war in the scene where he's got his hand in that guy's leg, trying to hold his fucking his artery open.
John, so to your point, think about Train Spotting. The genius of Train Spotting is it was the first movie about drug addicts to spend some time explaining why people do drugs in the first place.
Drugs are cool.
Because drugs are fun.
Scotland's boring.
What I thought was really...
I thought it's because everybody's on the dole.
Yes,
exactly.
This movie is an indictment of all the things we've been talking about, yet at the same time, it has to continuously remind us, but people watch this for a fucking reason, because it's the equivalent of Ben-Hur and the gladiators going around in a circle.
Right.
This is what we have. This is our rollerball.
Yeah,
I watch it for a reason, because it is exciting.
But just when all the conflicts in the movie were resolved by Al Pacino making a speech in the locker room about teamwork, that just felt a little bit like, really? That's where we're going to land, is, lightning bolts and
I think
heroic close-ups
for his confession at the end.
Yeah, except all of the conflicts aren't resolved by that, because he doesn't get his job back. They don't re-sign Willie Beeman. The team may still move
to
moment
at the end, though. Remember that whole the whole FU at the very end?
Yeah, that was.
It was tacked on.
It was kind of half misogynistic, if you ask me. Hey,
Yeah, I was wondering
girl.
about that too. Well said, Scott. I wondered about Cameron Diaz's character, whether there was sort of just this ongoing.
I was wondering if she knew.
It started with that locker room scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought she was pretty savvy, and
No,
in terms of like,
I think Tad, I think you
No,
mentioned
her character is
her
a
best
total
performances.
difference.
She's very good in this.
yes, she is.
Yeah.
She's very good in this, and it's like unexpected. It's like this is kind of like the testosterone feel of the film, but she's
Although
not, like
she also owns a baseball team in My Best Friend's Wedding,
Yes. Well,
is that kind of
her dad does.
or her dad does. Okay.
Yeah.
I
This
just
is
think
this
of
is
her as
that
Mrs.
character
Shrek.
a couple years later when her dad dies.
right.
I actually think, it would have been nice to, she seems to have completely retired from acting these days, but she did definitely seem to get put in a light comedy bucket or
Right.
rom-com bucket or whatever. and
Rom-com bucket.
She definitely probably never was allowed to do more things like this. And it's too bad.
Gangs of New York, but that's
Being John Malkovich,
all right.
That's my favorite thing she ever did.
she was great in it.
I don't think that's her best acting though. I think this is her best acting.
Yeah.
Like that's the best movie she's in, but I think
Mm-hmm.
this is her best acting.
Especially in ensemble, because I think she just did really well in terms of like, reflecting off all the other actors in there. There's like this in terms of ensemble acting about other characters, talking to the characters, having scenes with them. Very well done. There was nothing awkward about it at all. Everyone felt really natural.
I
thought
kind
that
of felt that
Dennis Quaid-
Anne Margaret was wasted.
Well, yeah, she was
It
just
was wasted.
Yeah, she was
But,
wasted. But, that's kind of her.
You mean in the sense
was
that she
her
was
character.
drunk in
She
every
was kind
scene?
of this kind of drunk wastrel who was kind of like, but that's the thing.
No, wasted as in they paid money for her.
Did anybody
It could have been
buy
anybody.
Did anybody buy Dennis? So how old was Dennis Quaid when he made this, do you think?
Too
I
old.
can only think
But
about
that's
his
the thing.
crazy
He was too old. That worked. He was a
Well,
little too
but
old.
I
I
think
thought he was too old to even play a football
No,
player
I
that's
think
too
that worked.
old.
I
He
think
looked like Montana in the last couple of seasons he played.
I know, but I don't even think I don't even think Joe Montana was as old as Dennis Quaid is when he made this
I don't
movie.
know, man. Okay, maybe exaggerated for the big screen, but I thought it worked really
He was
well.
good.
Yeah.
I
I just think that-
like his
Dennis
looks,
Quaid was 45 when he made this.
yeah,
Okay, how old's Tom Brady right now?
43.
75.
All right. All right. I don't.
No.
Joe Montana wasn't in his 40s when he was in the Kansas City Chiefs, was he?
I think he was 40.
Yeah. So
And
only
his
a little bit
character,
off the mark.
Dennis Quaid's character is meant to be 39. That's what
Yeah.
they say
Yeah.
in the movie.
Yeah, right.
I thought he was good as well.
Yeah, he was.
And that's
He was
another
also
thing.
really
Like Quaid is another one of those guys who sort of gets left out of a lot of more dramatic parts too.
True.
Like there's a lot of people in this movie, and at the time, Jamie Foxx was known as a comedian.
Right.
Like
This
Living
is Larry
Color,
Safran,
right?
Living Color, right?
yeah.
And this was like when his
And the Jamie
musical
Foxx
career,
show.
his musical career was going still at this
Yeah.
point too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which is why he gets to sing for a little bit in it.
Yeah. And he sings in the closing credits a song based on the title.
Mhm.
I don't know who we were ever supposed to root for, because I think
Elizabeth Berkley.
Oh,
Right, we
reprising
need-
Charlton
Showgirls.
Heston.
That was nice of her. That was
No,
good.
this movie seemed to come out of the gate, or Oliver Stone came. It's like he sets out on this path and he's throwing landmines ahead of him that he has to then try to navigate around. Unsympathetic, like basically everybody. A movie that can't quite figure out whether it loves or hates sports, wacko editing, etc. Having said all that, I enjoyed watching it
Yeah,
for sure, and Oliver Stone.
Uncharacteristically, I enjoyed the sports scenes.
One thing that struck me as kind of
They're beautiful.
and this is an odd
Yeah.
thing to kind of quibble about, but was the art department. I thought that the costumes were like
The uniforms are bad.
The
man.
team
bad.
logos.
they were and they were
Horrible.
bad, terrible. And the thing is, you get someone who can do that well, you end up with something really special. Like I'm
Mhm.
thinking of Goon, which had great art direction in it, and like maybe like other films like that. That actually they wouldn't.
It made me
look
wonder if did they think that the NFL was going to help, and then at
Yes.
the last minute they had to
Yeah.
oh god, we got to come up with teams and logos and
Because
uniforms.
the LA Knights.
Go
are
give it to
clowns.
Skippy because his passion is art direction. James Woods is
Never came out.
James Woods in Casino is so good.
Oh my god, he's such a scum bucket.
Yeah.
Isn't he in Once Upon a Time in the West too?
Not
Not the West.
America.
In America.
America.
Yes,
One of the best,
Which is a great movie, but we can only pick one that week.
there's some very good movies.
No, we're gonna pick that.
James
and,
Woods is his cameo in The Simpsons, playing himself working at that Quickie Mart.
Mhm.
Yeah,
His
where he
cameo
does
in the whole series.
he does the whole.
And I liked him in this.
Studio
Yeah.
thing.
No, it was all the way down the line. It was good.
I don't even know that I don't think I'm even lukewarm on this. I think I'm like 80% on this movie. More than I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
Could be the booze talking.
I'm okay. We're doing thumbs here. I'm just gonna go like, it's pretty good. It was I was not
It's a good one
bored.
for me.
It was kind of,
80%.
I didn't like watching kind of that whole excess of football, the world of football thing, but I realized he was trying to knock it down a bit, but he was trying to have his cake and eat it too, which kind of is very
Big time.
Yeah, that was my impression too.
Yeah.